But the Abkhazians, they had a legend of a great storm and a ship in the Black Sea that had Africans on board, and the ship wrecked due to the great storm. And then, of course, later that story was changed. It started becoming during the Ottoman Empire, during the 18th or 19th century. I mentioned this in my book. There was the head of the ethnology department in Russia at that time, and they were saying that it was a ship leaving Turkey and heading up to Crimea area. But before they could, here's the Black Sea, but before they could get to Crimea, the ship wrecked and came on the coast of Abkhazia. So they have these theories about this is how this black tribe got up into Abkhazia, which is near Armenia and Georgia, the Armenian highlands. But it always has to do with slavery, that they want to relegate it down to that instead of looking at the facts. And I told you in our previous video about there was a mixture event between the populations of Armenia and sub-Saharan Africans in the 3800 BC time frame. Of course, those were just estimates. Those were just inferences. They might be 1,000 years off. They might be 1,500 years off. But it leads us to the biblical story of Noah and his three sons, Ham, Shem, Japheth, and how they ended up on the mountains of Ararat. But I want to share with you something here also, friends. In the book of 2 Kings, chapter 19, we go down to verses 35 through 37. Notice what it says here. It says, "And it came to pass that night that the angel of the Lord went forth." And by the way, this was written by the prophet Jeremiah. He was writing this during the time of King Hezekiah. King Hezekiah was the king of Judah between 745 and 717 BC. And during Hezekiah's 6th year in 740 BC, Samaria was taken by the Assyrians under King Sennacherib. And we can show you some pictures of that here. That's a picture of the Abkhazians. There's a picture of them today. But here's a picture of this is King Sennacherib. This is a relief that was found in Assyria by archaeologists in the 1840s, 1850s. And here are his captives, the 10 tribe kingdom of Samaria. And notice, friends, what they look like here. So, in the year 740 BC, during Hezekiah's 6th year, Sennacherib came up against the 10 tribe kingdom. They were deported. But notice what they look like. You see the hair style, the hair braiding, the woolly hair, the curly hair. See, these were black Hebrew Israelites. There's no doubt about it. In fact, in my previous video, not my previous video, but in one of my videos, if you go to my videos that are online, if you go to this one here, picture proof of black Hebrew Israelites of Judah, go to this video here, and it talks all about these photographs of these reliefs that were found by these archaeologists. And they even admit that they were African looking, the curly hair, and that they were Negroid or African. So that just tells us right there that that is what that's about. But going back to what Jeremiah said, 2 Kings, in the 8 years later, after Samaria was taken, the Assyrians came up against Judah, against King Hezekiah. They wanted to take them too. They already had the 10 tribes. They wanted to get Judah and Benjamin. So notice it says here what happened. The Most High came and protected them. It says in verse 35, "It came to pass that night that the angel of the Lord went forth and smote in the camp of the Assyrians 185,000, or 185,000. And when men arose early in the morning, behold, they were all dead corpses." But notice this, friends. "So Sennacherib, king of Assyria, departed, and went and returned and dealt at Nineveh. And it came to pass, as he was worshiping in the house of Nisroch his god, that Adrammelech and Sarezer his sons smote him with the sword. And they escaped," notice this, friends, "into the land of Ararat." And as you can see, this is also in the Hebrew. But I want to share with you a footnote of verse 37 here. Let me share that with you. So here's verse 37 talking about how actually in verse 36, how Sennacherib, he went away and he returned and he took up dwelling in Nineveh because that angel of the Most High struck down 185,000 of the Assyrians. But then in verse 37, it came about, as I said, that his two sons, Adramelech and Sharezer, his sons themselves struck him down with the sword, and they themselves escaped to the land of Ararat. But notice in the footnote here, verse 37, Ararat, the manuscript Vulgate, the Armenians. So there again, that takes us back to Armenia, the mountains of Ararat, fitting in with the account of Noah and the global flood. So that account again was written by the prophet Jeremiah in Judah. He wrote it in Judah and in Egypt. So this shows that the Hebrew Israelites and the African Egyptians, they knew where the mountains of Ararat were. They knew where they were. And so people are still debating and questioning how did this black tribe get up into Abkhazia, up in Eastern Europe. They still can't figure out how that happened and how that crossover came about, when it occurred. But we know Noah had 3 sons, and they migrated to different parts. And due to isolation, that's what became of the races. I mentioned that in my book too. But we all go back to one family there. And that genetic study that was done in 2015, which I talked about in the previous video, talks about how that took place there between the Armenians and sub-Saharan Africans. Okay. In fact, they're still disputing these Abkhazians of African descent. Notice here, hypothesis, it says the ethnic group of the Afro-Abkhazians and how Africans arrived in Abkhazia is still a matter of dispute among experts. So they still can't figure out how this came about, but we know how it came about. It was because of the global flood, and Noah and his sons and their wives came out of the ark and lived up in those Armenian highlands at least for 1 year, maybe 2 years. And then they started their migrations to Mesopotamia there. So again, they still view it as a matter of dispute. They can't agree on it, even among the experts. But you know, Yeshua said that just like in the days of Noah, so it will be in the days of Son of Man. They were eating, they were drinking, men were being given in marriage, they were building, and they took no note until the flood came and swept them all away. So friends, this is an eye-opener for us. Wake up. We're living in a time of awakening. We need to prepare. Mashiach is here, and we don't want to be swept away when that flood comes. So as Yeshua said, just like in the days of